to another video. So today I am going to take you through how to can homemade tomato sauce with garden tomatoes. However, it is the end of April. So where I live, there are no tomatoes in the garden yet. So how can I do this? First of all, I had a pretty big crop of tomatoes in the summer and I froze them. Threw them straight in the freezer as they are in bags. I think some of them I might have cut off like a bad spot, but it's time to clear up some space. I need some tomato sauce, so I'm going to do that. So the first step is in a nice big pot. We're going to, I filled it with the frozen tomatoes, and as they cook down, I will put more in. And I put just a bit of water to start, and I'm going to bring this to a boil. This is all water that is coming, like juices out of the tomato, but don't worry. Like you want to leave that, we'll simmer it for so long that all of this will cook off and it will thicken. But for now we have frozen and partially thawed tomatoes going. As this cooks down, I'm going to put in more of my tomatoes and we'll catch up in a bit. Okay, so there's the tomatoes. They're all going to be soft now and not frozen anymore. I'm just going to take the lid off. And I'm going to turn this down. And we're going to work at straining those out. So to do that, I have this, actually I don't know what it's called, but it's kind of like a mill. So I'll put the tomatoes in there and you can smash them, and that's going to take out the seeds, the skin, the stems, anything that you don't really want in your tomato sauce will go into, or stay in there. Okay, so I got this little set up, and I'm just going to start moving tomatoes over. And then we are going to cook it all down. All the water that's in there, that's all going to have a lot of tomato flavor in it as well, so we're going to, eventually we'll simmer that. So put those in there. Take your little wooden mallet. And we're just gonna keep doing that. Alright, so what I got left is just skin and seeds. Maybe there's a little bit of tomato meat in there. I'll probably smash it some more, but we've got it in there. Okay, so I scooped all the tomatoes into a bowl, so I have somewhere to dump the pulp, or the meat and the pulp back into. I've strained out kind of some of the seeds. Okay, so this is all the tomatoes strained, and I put it in a different pot. I needed the other one to simmer. It is so liquidy. Don't be afraid. I will be simmering this on the stove for probably a good number of hours. So at the moment, I'm kind of almost up to high to get it to a boil, and then I'll turn it down to simmer. And it will thicken eventually, and it will reduce quite a bit. There will not be nearly as much in here, but that is where we're at now. Alright, it is the next day, and this is what I'm left with after simmering it. I simmered it for, oh goodness, probably 3 hours last night, and then it was just late, so I left it on the stove overnight. And it went from like this top kind of line, it reduced all the way down to there. So it's thick now. Remember all that water that was in there? That's all cooked off. This is probably the consistency I want. So I know it looked like a lot, but we're actually not going to get too much out of that. So when I was simmering it, I put into the sauce 2 teaspoons of salt, 2 cloves of garlic. I just threw them in whole and let them simmer away in there. Probably about a teaspoon of oregano and maybe a teaspoon of sugar just to kind of balance out the taste. I didn't put the sugar until the end though, when it was done simmering. So now I gotta heat it back up and we're gonna put it into jars. So let's turn that on and get going. Okay, and while my sauce is starting to heat up, I'm going to sterilize some jars to can it in. These are, I think they're pints. I am not good at my measurements. I think that would hold 2 cups, which I believe is a pint. 5 is probably too many. I'd just rather have too many sterilized jars than not enough. So I'm just filling, this is my canner, filling the jars and the canner so that the jars are submerged in water. And I'm going to bring that to a boil, and we will boil these jars for 10 minutes to sterilize them. Okay, so that's all. The jars are coming to a boil soon. The tomato sauce is warming up. I'm just going to cover kind of the basics of canning tomatoes and safety for that. So I am following a Bernardin canning recipe. I recommend you follow a recipe just for safety reasons. Tomatoes have a higher chance of having botulism in them, I think, just based on they're not very acidic. So you want to make sure, sorry, I just gotta stir it, sure that you're doing the right processing time and adding acid to eliminate any kind of dangers from that. So look up what the current guidelines are whenever you're watching, or whenever you're going to make the pasta sauce or tomato, anything canned tomatoes. Look up the current guidelines that the Bernardin or the health authority of your country or whatever have out at the time. But at this moment in time, I'm following a Bernardin canning recipe to make sure I do it right. I am going to add to mine some citric acid. I think I just bought it online, or even just, no, I think I bought it at a grocery store, back canning time. So for the size jars I'm using, which are a pint or 500 mils, you want to add 1/4 teaspoon of citric acid or a tablespoon of lemon juice into the bottom of each jar before you put the tomato sauce on top of it and give it a little mix, and that's gonna just be the right amount of acid to make sure nothing bad is gonna stay in your sauce. And then we will process it, and I will look up, because I forgot to look up how long to process that size jar in boiling water as well. Okay, so our jars are sterilized. They boiled for 10 minutes, and we are ready to be filling them. So I've got everything I need kind of close by. I have a funnel, jar grabbers, my magnet stick for picking up your new lids. So you want to use new lids every time, and I have my citric acid and my rings. So we are going to fill these jars. So with these sealers, you don't need to sterilize them, but they do need to kind of warm up the rubber seal a bit. So I like to just pop them in a spare spot in my canner, just to get warm while I'm getting the jars ready. So I'm gonna dump the rest of the water in the sink. Alright, 1/4 teaspoon of the citric acid into the jar. And then we're going to fill it. Right, and you want to make sure that your tomato sauce is hot going into a hot jar. So this has been simmering a little bit. And I'm just going to fill the jar. We're just going to leave a bit of space at the top. I'm going to take a wooden chopstick and I'm just going to kind of mix it to get any air bubbles out. Then you take just a little bit of wet paper towel, and I'm just going to wipe the top off, because if there's any sauce or anything, then the jar won't seal. Take our hot sealer, finger tighten back into the hot water, and we're going to repeat that process. So I think for this one I filled it just a little too full because I was trying to squeeze, there wasn't that much left. So you don't want it to be too full, so I am just going to take a little scoop out. Just, it won't seal if there's too much in it also. There we go. Okay, so I only filled 2 jars. That seemed like a lot of work for 2 jars, but it's going to save room in my freezer now, and I'm going to have 2 jars of sauce preserved and on the shelf for whenever I need it. Ideally, like, you'd want to, you can do a small batch like this, or you can do a bigger batch and get more jars. It's whatever's worth it. To me, the effort of this was worth it, because it really wasn't too involved, and I'm just happy to have sauce ready to go. So I'm going to drop these back in. And what we want to do is bring this water back up to a boil. I'm going to put the lid on. So for processing time, where I live I'm over 1,000 feet of altitude, so I need to boil mine longer. So I have to bring this up to a rolling boil and boil it for 40 minutes total for a pint. Below 1,000 feet, the recipe said 35 minutes. So we'll just keep an eye, and once it's come to a full rolling boil, then I'll set my timer. Okay, so I just have a little bit left over that there's no... Alright, that's boiling. So I'm going to set a timer for 40 minutes for mine. Okay, the timer just went, and the jars are done. So we're gonna take them out. Just have a towel here to set them on. Alright, now they need to sit here for 24 hours untouched so that they can cool, seal, and just be properly safe for your consumption. See if we can wait to hear a snap of one of the lids so you know what that sounds like, and then that's how you know it's sealed. There we go.